But Sean, let's move on into the meat and potatoes of the podcast. And we've done quarterback rankings. Well, Mark and I have done quarterback rankings. We've done running back rankings for fantasy football. This week, we continue those rankings with you joining us with the rankings. Both myself, you, and Mark Weber all ranked wide receivers, the top 30, regardless of teams. We're going to go through each. It's a segment of 10 per. We're going to start at 30, go all the way to 1. First off, let's meet the guys who will be in 21 through 30. Before we do that, we have 3 honorable mentions. Devin Funchess, Cortland Sutton, Marvin Jones. They received votes from one of the 3, however, did not get in to the top 30. And let's start. Number 30, the newest addition to the Atlanta Falcons, the hot Atlanta Falcons, Calvin Ridley at number 30. Number 29, we got Michael Crabtree, the ex-Oakland Raider, now Baltimore Raven. Then at number 28, coming back from injury, I believe, Will Fuller of the Houston Texans. Then Robert Woods sitting at 27. 26, we got Sammy Watkins, the newest addition to the Kansas City Chiefs. 25, Josh Gordon of the Cleveland Browns. Number 20, or that was 25. Number 24 is T.Y. Hilton, the main guy in Indianapolis, hoping to get his main guy back in Andrew Luck. Number 23, Julian Edelman, another guy coming off of injury for the New England Patriots. Number 22, Juju Smith-Schuster of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then your boy, the Golden Domer, playing with the Detroit Lions, Golden Tate at 21. And before we get into the main guys that we want to discuss, I wanted to throw at you. One of them got into the top 30. That was Calvin Ridley. Another one received votes in Cortland Sutton. What are you thinking of some of the rookie receivers, maybe ones that haven't gotten any mentions from us? And then the 2 that did in fantasy this year.
Well, at least the 2 that I think are going to be at least interesting to see is going to be DJ Chark, now a Jacksonville Jaguar. I mean, we talked about Jacksonville looking for a wide receiver in round 1. They go and get Chark in round 2. And this is a guy that's big, 6'4", has pretty decent speed to himself. And they don't have a lot of weapons on the outside to throw to. Allen Robinson, gone. Allen Hurns, gone. They're going to need somebody to catch balls out there. And if Chark can step up and Blake Bortles can actually throw him the ball, he's going to be getting at least targets. He's going to hopefully be grabbing balls and getting receptions. It's going to lead to yards. It's going to lead to at least a couple touchdowns. So Chark's going to be an interesting one to see if Bortles is able to throw the ball down the field effectively. If not, obviously that offense is going to be stagnant, but you're going to have a great running game to pair with Bortles to at least help him. And we've seen Bortles throw over 4,000 yards before. We've seen him throw over 30 touchdowns before. So Bortles has shown to be a capable passer. Having Leonard Fournette and then a healthy DJ Chark could be something that at least propels him into the top 30. And the other guy I want to mention is DJ Moore. From the Carolina Panthers now. I mean, you look at the Panthers wide receiving
Does he
core.
become the main guy in Carolina? Like, besides Christian McCaffrey, is he the main wide receiver for, besides Greg Olsen and McCaffrey, is he the main wide receiver?
It's going to be him and Funches. I would say
Does he overtake Funches?
I probably would say he does, just because, Devin Funches to me hasn't really proven that much. He's been injured a lot. DJ Moore right now healthy, fresh body to throw at, 6 feet tall. The guy can run too. He's one of the quicker guys I think at the combine, at least for wide receivers. We've seen that they weren't really afraid to work in McCaffrey before, so they're not really worried about working in rookies. I think Moore has more potential than Funches does, so I wouldn't be shocked if he does become the number 1 wide receiver coming out. And also the Cat Crave, I think it's the fan-sided site for the Panthers, said DJ Moore primed to be a major part of the offense. So I wouldn't be shocked if he does become the number 1 wide receiver at some point for the Panthers.
Yeah, and rookies on their own, we could have our own rankings for rookies. DJ Moore might fit the tail end. I feel like there's going to be 3 rookies that make an impact right away that you should draft later on. Calvin Ridley, who is in our top 30. Cortland Sutton, who I had right at 30 in my personal top 30, and then DJ Moore. However, another one that I looked at, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I would draft this guy, but he would definitely, I feel like he's going to be a waiver pickup for a lot of people later this year, is going to be Miller with the Bears, the guy out of Memphis.
Anthony Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be an interesting piece. I don't know if he's ever going to be I think he's going to be an ad in most leagues because, I mean, if you're playing, if you're a 12-team league, you're going to have to at least take a shot. He's going to have a couple, like, 15, 16 games out of nowhere, and people are going to want to pick him up. I think so, too. I mean, if he has a game where, again, he's a guy that can, be a guy that's going to be a deep threat for Mitch Trubisky, but he's also going to be a guy that can, catch, like, 9 balls a game. So he's going to be interesting, especially if, Kevin White's injured, if Allen Robinson isn't coming back healthy. These are going to be interesting plays on if Anthony Miller's going to be able to make an impact. We saw that, he's an electric playmaker, and, maybe he's going to be found immediately by Mitch just because he is young, he's fast. People aren't going to know how to cover him right away. If Anthony Miller is able to show at least a multitude of moves coming out of his breaks and out of his sets, he's going to be a guy that I think Mitch could totally target in because Mitch showed that he could throw the long ball last year, but if Anthony Miller's running, over the middle, he could be a guy that, I don't know if he's going to work primarily out of the slot in this Bears offense, but if he does, he could be a safety blanket for Mitch. He could, if he's in a PPR league, he's catching, 9 to 7 balls a game. You're going to get at least, what's 7 times a half, or if you're playing even, a point of PPR, you're getting 7 points, 9 points just on catches alone. I'm not too high on Cortland Sutton at all, though. I think having him in the top 30 is ridiculous. Emmanuel Sanders is a bigger target than Cortland Sutton is. I get it. He's a rookie. He's flashy. But with Case Keenum, I don't know how that offense is going to work. They don't have a rushing attack. I don't think a rookie's going to make his name big in that Broncos offense. You still have Emmanuel Sanders, and you still have a guy in Demaryius Thomas who is, in our next segment. He's in the top 20. I think those are going to be the main targets for Case Keenum.
And I mean, how I feel like Denver's going to work this year. Demaryius Thomas is going to be the main target. Like we saw last year, like Case Keenum's going to work with the number 1, number 2 guy. That's what he did with Thielen and Stephon Diggs. I have a feeling, though, that Cortland Sutton throughout the year, maybe this is one that's kind of a long play and shouldn't be at 30, but I wanted to throw him in at 30. He's going to be one that I feel like, same thing you were talking about on Anthony Miller. Being in the slot, he's going to be able to work that well with having Sanders and Thomas because people are going to be doubling them, focusing on them. Eventually, he's going to be a guy that Bronco fans go...
you can't double both guys.
Well, you can't double both, but you'll double one of them, open him up in the middle, and Case Keenum's not a guy that's going to be like, I'm going to Thomas every time because he's my favorite. I want to move on to 3 guys that I know you know how to work the spreadsheet. Mark last week was like, I wasn't highlighting guys when I thought he was trying to send me subliminal messages. You actually have 3 guys highlighted.
I do.
And they all have one thing in common. And I think I know what they all have in common. They all missed last year or didn't play full seasons last year.
It was that, but it's also 3 of my favorite players just on this list. It's Julian Edelman. I was about to say Packer fan. I'm a Patriot fan. I think it's pretty clear. Tom Brady's getting one of his favorite weapons back in Julian Edelman. He's going to be healthy. And this is one thing where there's now 9 touchdowns unaccounted. Brandon Cooks, gone. He had 7 touchdowns. Danny Amendola, 2 touchdowns in the regular season, gone. You're going to need to make up that production. How about the guy that had 151 receptions, or 151 targets in 2013, 134 targets in 2014, and 159 targets in 2016? Julian Edelman will get balls thrown at him. He's going to get yards. If you're in a PPR league, he's going to be higher than he is right now. We're not doing this based on PPR, just purely yardage and touchdowns. He's a guy that can put up 1,000 yards receiving, and he's a guy that hasn't put up over 7 touchdowns in his career in a season, but he did put up 7 touchdowns in 2015, but he was injured, only played 9 games. He's a guy that you got to watch out for. I know most people sleep on him because he isn't crazy athletic. He's a small guy, but it's Tom Brady. He's proven that he loves him, and if Gronk's injured, this is his safety blanket. He's going to throw 11 balls a game at Julian Edelman, and Julian Edelman isn't a drop machine. Julian Edelman is, I think, a fantastic pickup no matter where you draft him. If you're able to get him as a late steal, great. If you're able to even jump up on him early, I think it's a nice move because Julian Edelman is a guy that's going to catch balls, he's going to be targeted, and he's going to be a massive part of this Patriot offense.
And both you and I were a little bit higher on Julian Edelman in the rankings. I had him right below you. You had him at 20, I had him at 21. My only two concerns for Julian Edelman is, number 1, if Gronk's healthy, Gronk's going to be the main target. And number 2, I look at, like with Tom Brady, I almost feel like it's almost Aaron. Like I get the Julian Edelman, like, you know what? Game's on the line. I'm going to go to Julian Edelman. He's going to help me out. But I feel like over a season, I feel like Tom Brady's the guy where, you know what? I'm not necessarily going to target in on one guy. whoever is open, and you're adding a Jordan Matthews to this team.
Jordan Matthews is not going to do much.
I'm just saying, you're adding a Cordero Patterson. You're adding guys who could eventually take some receptions away as the course of the season goes on.
Ricky, this is not only a brand new toy, but this is like your trusted, like this is your trusted car. I mean, this is, even though it's like a beat down piece of shit 2002 Honda Civic, this is his favorite toy. I mean, it might not be the best car. He's got a Bugatti Veyron in the garage. This is the car he trusts. This is his Prius. It's going to get him around. He is going to use Julian Edelman no matter who you bring in. Cordero Patterson hasn't proven that he can be a wide receiver in the NFL. He can be a weapon. He can't proven that he's a wide receiver in the NFL. Jordan Matthews can't stay healthy. And I love Gronk. Gronk is the greatest tight end of all time. I know he might not have the accolades that Gates and Tony Gonzalez does. But he gets injured all the time. But he gets injured all the time. And it's one thing that red zone-wise, Gronk's going to be your guy. I mean, Gronk has 76 touchdowns. That's the most connections that Tom Brady has with any wide receiver, any weapon at all. And they've only been playing for, 7 years now? And Gronk hasn't been healthy for that whole time. But who he's going to go to most, who's going to get the most targets, it's going to be Julian Edelman. Gronk has gotten, I think, around 131 at most targets in his career. Julian Edelman's going to get 150 targets this year if he's healthy. He's not going to get targets taken away from him. He's taking targets away from people. He is going to be the #1 threat on that New England Patriot offense. He might not be the most deadliest wide receiver. He might not be the most explosive wide receiver, but he is the most consistent wide receiver. And when he's healthy, he is extremely consistent. So I think Julian Edelman is going to be at least a top 20 wide receiver. That's where I had him ranked in my personal ranking.
And I mean, just to kind of back you up a little bit, I know this was a team that did not have Brandon Cooks at the time because obviously Edelman was injured all last year, so we can't take that into account. 2016, he did have 158 targets. Gronk was injured, though, only had 38 that year, but to me, it was a big question.
They've coexisted before.
They have coexisted before, but it's one of those things where I wonder if it's going to be, yes, he's going to be the main guy for New England, but is that necessarily going to be a guy you want as your #1 starting wide receiver?
The biggest question for him is health. Is he going to be able to cut left and right as quick as he was able to? Is he going to be able to push off and at least separate from corners like he was able to? I mean, an ACL injury is not anything to screw around with. So if he's going to be able, the thing is, if he's able to trust that knee, if he's able to still bring that same explosiveness, and he's a guy that works his ass off, this is a guy Tom Brady loves. Again, they're best friends. They have so similar personalities. This is a guy Tom Brady loves. This is a guy that, again, is the most consistent wide receiver on that Patriot team. I mean, this is a guy that Tom Brady's going to throw balls at no matter what. I get that you're worried. I get that, again, Tom Brady isn't going to focus in on one guy. But if he's going to focus in on one guy,
it's going to be Julian Edelman.
It's Julian Edelman. And we saw what Tom did last year without Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman is an upgrade in my mind to Brandon Cooks, at least in this Patriot offense. Yes, Brandon Cooks might be more explosive. Again, he's one of the quickest wide receivers in the NFL. But Julian Edelman is the guy Tom Brady trusts the most. That's why I think he's got to be in the top 20 because Aaron Rodgers' guy, his #1 target, he's in the top 10. Tom Brady is throwing the ball as much as Aaron Rodgers is. He might not be focusing in on Julian Edelman in the red zone, but he's going to be throwing balls at him consistently. He's going to get 1,000 yards. He's going to get near 100 receptions. Julian Edelman's a top 20 wide receiver.
The one out of the three that you highlighted that I'm most excited for this season is Will Fuller.
Yeah.
Because
another Golden Domer.
Well, not just that, but I mean, Mark and I talked about quarterbacks, and just to go back to that, to see where exactly we had Deshaun Watson 4th overall. I had him at 3. He had him at 5. And to me, the thing with Will Fuller is not only are both of those players coming back from season-ending injuries last year, but the thing that I wonder most is, are we going to see the same kind of chemistry, the same kind of connection that we saw earlier last year with Watson and Fuller, where it was like, hey, Hopkins is going to get his. DeAndre Hopkins. I was like, Deshaun Hopkins. That
Deshaun Watson,
right.
That's why.
Hopkins is going to get his.
Yeah.
But Will Fuller was the favorite target, it seemed, of Deshaun Watson.
The big thing was just the touchdowns. I mean, he was hitting them on deep ball left and right. I mean, he was averaging per reception.
But he was also hitting them on the little dinkers that just go 20 yards.
In the games from Game 4 to Game 7, when Will Fuller was on the field and Deshaun Watson was as well, 21 targets, 13 receptions, 279 yards. He averaged 21 yards a reception and 7 touchdowns. The 7 touchdowns is the big thing right there. We just talked about Julian Edelman. His most in a season was 7. Will Fuller had 7 in a 4-game span, and again,
then he was
coming. Will Fuller was healthy until week 9, so he was still a little bit healthy after Watson did. But Watson got injured.
Yeah,
that was the thing. Is Will Fuller was one of Deshaun Watson's favorite targets, at least going deep. This is a deep ball threat. Will Fuller's massively quick. He's got great hands. He's got great separation. As long as Will Fuller's healthy, he's going to be a guy that's going to rack up touchdowns. He was a great waiver wire pickup last year, and the fact that Deshaun Watson got injured plummeted his stock, but we saw when they were on the field together, even though it was a small sample size for those 4 games, they were absolutely electric.
Well, and the great thing about this top 30 is, let's say you're even in an 8-person league, we're basically saying that if you're drafting at least 2 wide receivers at the least to be your starting 2, he should be one of the guys that you're drafting to maybe be in that top start. Well, not top starting here, but maybe that
he'd be
third
a
to flex.
Yeah, he'd be a little bit flex.
So, like, you already have 2-3 wide receivers. You need that third and that fourth guy.
But if you're looking for a guy that's going to rack up touchdowns, we saw what Deshaun Watson did in that first those first 7 weeks he did play. Yep. Guy was throwing touchdowns left and right. Will Fuller is a guy that you definitely want to look out for. If you feel like he's going to be off the board in the next round, just take him, because he's a guy when he's healthy and Deshaun Watson's healthy, that connection is proven to be magical before. So I think that's something, a guy, if he's out there and you're just getting the shakes about whether to pick him or not, go out and take him.
Let me bring up one that I'm worried about. Okay. And I had this player ranked the lowest between all 3 of us. Mark had him the highest. He had him in his top 20. I had him at 25. I mean, you had him at 24, so basically we're thinking the same here. But I am worried about T.Y. Hilton. Actually, he's in my top 30, but me personally, I'm not drafting him. I'm not going anywhere near T.Y. Hilton. I know there's some people out there that might say, Ricky, you're crazy. T.Y. Hilton is the main wide receiver for Indianapolis. I just feel that this year, if there is the injury questions with Andrew Luck, and he doesn't get Andrew Luck back, I'm not touching him. I am not touching T.Y. Hilton. Are you on the same page as me, or are you saying, hey, you know what, even if Andrew Luck isn't there, T.Y. Hilton can still help you in fantasy?
He can still help you, but he's not the same T.Y. Hilton. I mean, let's look at this from a reasonable aspect. When Andrew Luck was healthy, and again, he was healthy, from 2013 to 2016.
500 days since he's been injured.
2013 to 2016. That's when Andrew Luck was playing. I know he didn't play all 16 games in each of those seasons, but we're just going to take that as a wide margin, because that's the majority of where T.Y. Hilton's balls were being thrown from. T.Y. Hilton was a top 10 wide receiver when Andrew Luck was throwing to him. Over those years from 2013 to 2016, he had 559 receptions, 5,000 yards, 23 touchdowns. He was averaging 15.4 yards a reception. He consistently was a 1,000-yard receiver. He was consistently getting from 5 to 7 touchdowns a year. He's a guy that was getting over 100 targets, over 130 targets in that span from 2013 to 2016. If Andrew Luck is healthy, he's going to hit T.Y. Hilton, and he's going to hit him often. And that was one thing that was kind of lacking, was even though Jacoby Brissett is a good backup, he might have some starter potential. Andrew Luck was able to hit T.Y. Hilton on those deep balls, and we saw T.Y. Hilton be a massive deep ball threat. We've seen him be really great on the outside as well, but there was those constant plays where the Colts needed a touchdown, T.Y. Hilton's running straight down the middle of the field. He's wide open. Andrew Luck places it beautifully in the basket, and it's a touchdown for the Colts. I see if that magic's still there, if Andrew Luck is healthy and he's close to the old Andrew Luck we know, this is going to be a great pickup. I'm just worried about Andrew Luck. I'm not worried about T.Y. Hilton.
And that's
T.Y.
exactly
Hilton's
where
going to be at least, he's going to, I mean, even last year, he was near 1,000 yards. He was 966 yards, played all 16 games, only 109 targets, second lowest in his career, still had 4 touchdowns, but it's a massive difference when you do have a healthy Andrew Luck.
And I mean, that's exactly where I'm at, where if he doesn't have Andrew Luck out there, I'm not drafting him. I'm not going near him, because it's like, yeah, you know what, you're T.Y. Hilton, but part of it is that kind of, it's almost like Will Fuller if Deshaun Watson was injured, like we saw last year, where it's like, I don't even want Will Fuller on my team. if Deshaun Watson's injured because of that chemistry.
But the one thing that I will say is Jacoby Brissett to what the Texans were trotting out in Savage, it's completely
it's a lot
different.
better of an upgrade.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett's a much more capable passer than Tom Savage was.
Give me another guy you want to talk about in this range.
It's got to be Josh Gordon. Come on. I mean, 21 to 30.
Sean's like, I highlighted him for a reason, Ricky.
Well, the reason is, I mean, this is everyone's like biggest crush, and I think in fantasy. Everybody loves Josh Gordon. Everybody wants to be that person to pick up Josh Gordon.
Expect Dave to draft him in our league.
Nobody wants to miss out on Josh Gordon. Some people might even have him in the being taken in the second round because we've seen what he's done healthy. I mean, you look back at that 2013 season when he was healthy, 159 targets, 87 receptions, 1,646 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's possibly number one overall wide receiver output. And again, what was holding him back wasn't because of his athletic abilities, wasn't because of his game. It was off the field issues. It was his issues with himself and maintaining to be on the field. We see that he still is in shape. He's in incredible shape right now. We saw he was even at least a little bit effective when he came back in 2017, and that was with DeShone Kizer throwing to him. So Baker Mayfield and Tyrod Taylor being the weapons and the guys throwing to Josh Gordon now, it's a massive upgrade from what he was having, being thrown to him in 2013. If Josh Gordon is at least on the field and he's ready to play football, he is a guy that can be absolutely dangerous, and he could be a guy that, we have him in our 20s right now, but he could be a guy that, people watching us right now, he could be a top 10 guy. People could even have him over Jarvis Landry, who now is the quote unquote the number one wide receiver option on that Cleveland Brown team.
And that's what I was going to throw out is I believe every single one of us, the three of us, I know I have Jarvis Landry in my top 20. You've got Jarvis Landry in your top 20. Mark was the only one that had Jarvis. He didn't even have, I believe, Josh Gordon in the top 30, I don't think. I'd have to look at it more. Oh, he had them back-to-back at 21 and 22 with Gordon being above Landry. And to me, that's why I've got Josh Gordon where I did in this range, is because right now I feel like Jarvis Landry is the number one. But also I have questions about the Cleveland Browns I don't want to overhype them. Where, yes, I love what Landry did last year. I love what Josh Gordon could be. I love the Baker Mayfield, Tyrod, whichever one of them are starting. But it's Cleveland, and are they bound to fail?
But I think the one thing is, again, they massively upgraded their wide receiving core, and they massively upgraded their quarterbacks. Their line got worse because Joe Thomas is going to be there.
And their running back.
And they got Carlos Hyde as well.
And Nick Chubb.
Yeah, and Nick Chubb, and they still have Duke Johnson, who's still a very capable back coming out and catching balls out of the backfield. So again, they've upgraded their pieces, and it's just really who's going to be the guy that separates himself, and who's going to be the guy that separates himself out of the quarterback pack. And I don't know which one's going to favor Jarvis or which one's going to favor Josh Gordon, if either are going to favor one over the other, but again, these are more capable quarterbacks than DeShone Kizer. And even then, Josh Gordon still put up very capable numbers in the 5 games he played last year without a capable quarterback in DeShone Kizer. So I think it's a guy that, again, he might be a little bit of a gamble because of those pass off-the-field issues, because of his, at least, disease in his dependency to alcohol and drugs. But if he's able to get past that, and so far he has been able to do that since coming back to the Cleveland Browns, we haven't heard a peep out of the Josh Gordon camp that has been negative. This kid seems like he's back on his track. He's still in his prime when it comes to athletic ability. He's a guy that's going to be one of the most interesting one of the most interesting. He feels like a prospect still because he hasn't had a full season outside of the 1,646 yards.
Fantasy players.
But one of the most interesting fantasy players, if not the most interesting fantasy player in this whole year. The
last guy I want to mention before we move into the top 20. Both Mark and I had him at 28, just in the top 30. You didn't have him in the top 30.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Michael Crabtree? Newest addition to the Ravens. I know that it's him, Brown, and Willie Snead all being this Raven additions. Then you got the column issues, if you want, with Joe Flacco, and is he going to get benched halfway through the year for Lamar Jackson?
I don't know about that.
What are your thoughts with Crabtree? Because you didn't have him in the top 30.
I love Michael Crabtree just from that whole Texas Tech thing. That Graham Harrell game, that was one of the best. That was one of the best games I've ever seen in my life. And I love Michael Crabtree, but now he's got to be the number one wide receiver again. Hasn't done that since about, I think, 2016 when they drafted Amari Cooper, the Oakland Raiders. Maybe even 2015. I don't remember when Cooper was drafted.
Maybe when he was even not, since he was with San Fran.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And even then, Crabtree still was getting over 100 targets in the past 3 years, but again, he's a guy that's going to be touchdown reliant, and we've seen before when he was the #1 guy back in his last 2 years in San Fran. I know 2013 he was injured, but he only had 5 touchdowns in those 21 games. And he wasn't looking like the same Michael Crabtree that was, dominating the league in 2012. So it's something that I'm worried about, because Joe Flacco is a guy that loves to throw the deep ball, but is he going to target him in Crabtree's bread and butter, which is the red zone? So is Crabtree going to be able to be a potent deep threat? Is he going to be able to run the sidelines and be a guy that's going to be able to run 30-yard routes and still be able to win those balls? It's something that's going to be still up in the air. I mean, you look at his past performances. That year in 2013, he was averaging 13 yards a reception, and that's gone down ever since. 2014, 10.3. 2015, 10.8. 2016, 11.3, and then back down to 10.7 in 2017. He's a guy that's going to be a short yardage wide receiver. Joe Flacco, that's not where he makes his money. So I think, is Michael Crabtree still a decent wide receiver? Yes, I still think he's just outside my top 30, but I don't think he's going to be able to get the same touchdowns that he needs to. And will he be a guy that's going to get 100 targets to make sure he gets near 50 receptions, which last year he had 58 receptions, only 618 yards and 8 touchdowns. 8 touchdowns is nice, but will he be able to pack that yardage to be a top 30 wide receiver?
Now, my thing of why I had Crabtree just in my top 20 is when you look at guys like Crabtree, when you look at Snead, when you look at John Brown.
Yeah.
I feel like John Brown is going to end up being the guy that's more the deep threat.
I think he's going to get more touchdowns.
He did have some of those. See, here's the difference, though. John Brown is 5'10". Willie Snead is 5'11". You look at Crabtree, he's 6'1". He's the only one that cracks the 6 foot. I know what some might say, Ricky, it's only 2 inches above Willie Snead. I feel like because he is that 2 inches taller, when they get to the red zone, they're not going to be looking at Brown and Snead. They're going to be looking for the taller receiver. But I don't
think they're looking there at all. I think they're looking to run the ball, and I think they're also looking for their newly drafted tight end, Hayden Hurst. Joe Flacco loves the tight end. When Dennis Pitta was healthy, that was his guy. I mean, he consistently was looking. Even Ben Watson as well when he was a Baltimore Raven, he was consistently looking for the tight end, especially because they love play action. They love to run the ball with inside the red zone. They love to run play action. I think yes, will Michael Crabtree get red zone targets? Of course, but will he be the same guy he was in Oakland?
No.
I'm very worried about that. So I don't think he will be, and I don't think he's a top 30 wide receiver right now.
Well, and he also doesn't have Amari Cooper on the opposite field.
Exactly. And one thing, too, is he's a guy that, again, is getting older. So was last year the fact that Derek Carr was injured? Or was it because, again, Michael Crabtree is getting older? Can he still perform? Yes, he's a top 40 wide receiver, but I just don't think he's the top 30. I think there's higher potential in guys like Calvin Ridley because, yes, he's the #2 option in Atlanta, but also Julio Jones doesn't rack up a ton of touchdowns, and Julio Jones isn't the most healthy guy in the world. And if he is, you're pairing Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and if this Sarkisian offense picks up, we saw what Matt Ryan could do in 2016. So I think there's more potential in a guy like Calvin Ridley because he's younger, because he's faster. He's already a great route runner. Matt Ryan's going to eat him up. Will Fuller, we talked about that. If Deshaun Watson's healthy, he's a guy that's in the top 20 for sure, maybe even top 10 with the touchdowns that he was catching last year. And even then, Sammy Watkins, the biggest question for him is health, but even last year when he was healthy, he was still proven to be a good wide receiver.
Well, I mean, that's even a guy we haven't even mentioned where Sammy Watkins, where the thing I'm most excited with him is to see him. I know Matt Nagy's not there, but to see him in that Kansas City type of offense, because it's going to run the same with a guy like Patrick Mahomes slinging it to him. I know there's Tyreek Hill. I know there's Travis Kelce, but I think that Sammy Watkins is going to get his.
Well, and I think the one thing with Watkins is health, which that's why it takes it down from Tyreek Hill. And then also Tyreek Hill has worked with Pat Mahomes before. Sammy Watkins hasn't done that. Didn't affect him too much with Jared Goff, but it's something where Sammy, with the health concerns, with working with a new quarterback, and working in that Andy Reid offense, and working in Kansas City, which is seen to be a death trap for wide receiving options outside of Tyreek Hill, I'm worried at least what Sammy Watkins can do.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know of our 21 through 30 down below in the comment section.